The reason that I want to go with this one now, and we'll come back to the technology one later, is because it follows on very well from what Thilo's just been saying about the trials. So when I started to do this slideshow for this particular bit, and I looked at the whole thing about community, and I was going to just take community out and put it in a separate bubble. And then I realized that actually community covers everything. It covers the whole of our village, as it were. And one of the things that came out in the conference, and because it was in America, there were some reasonably cheesy things said, but and this was a particularly cheesy one, but I really liked it. What's the difference between illness and wellness? Anyone come across this one? Illness begins with I, and wellness begins with we, which, as I say, is very cheesy, but it's rather a good one, and it plays back into all the work that we did, we looked at this morning on the power of community in helping to keep us motivated with exercise and with attitude and with nutrition. So, whoops. One of the things that Giselle Petzinger said was, we're a tribe. She's the one of the exercise specialists. So she said, we are a tribe. And I've got that sense very clearly in the Congress. And some of the tribes worldwide, look, that slide up on the top left-hand corner is Roger Barker and Patrick Brandon, and I'm not sure who the two others are. Do you know Ken? Abdullah? Right, yes, we saw some of his stuff this morning. And the woman in the middle, that's Lynn Rochester, who was here in May giving a talk on exercise and was also one of the lead speakers at the Congress. And Giselle Petzinger is the woman in the bottom left-hand corner, beside one of the most inept selfies that you've ever seen. That was David and I with our buddies. We got buddied up with Alexa and Kerry from California. And up above there is the Parkinson's dance class in Portland. And Lindsay, you'll recognize the card that was sent. So, and the woman who's up behind, the one behind the woman with the white hair, she's Sharon, who picked me up at the Congress and drove me all the way to the class and then drove me all the way back again. So the tribe is really very special, and we've got Bastian Bloom there with all the tribe here, and Gordon Duncan. So some of the tribe who live here also have huge international kudos as well. And I just thought, well, who's the immediate tribe? And here's just one or two of them. So, and you'll recognize most of the faces there. So, sustaining the village, and this is really why I wanted to bring it on to this one now. One of the messages that came across very clearly was get involved in clinical trials. And what we've got over there is a whole set, a page with links into the clinical trials, the clinical trial finders that you can have a look at. And they don't want just people with Parkinson's, they also want healthy controls. So care partners, family members, friends who don't have Parkinson's are just as important in clinical trials as the people who do. Another way in which we can get involved is by talking to medical and physio students. I had huge fun at Queen Margaret University a few weeks back talking to people who were doing their one-year MSc in physio, asking me about my experience of patient care and patient-centered care. And it was great fun being able to sort of push back and help them to rethink their assumptions about what it meant to be a patient, especially within a physiotherapy, where most physiotherapists are used to the idea that somebody comes in, can get fixed, and then sent away again. What do you do with patients who aren't going to get fixed, and where continuing mobility is the outcome that you're wanting? I also had huge fun being a patient at the medical exams, and you get examined by these 50 medical students who are scared witless because the examiners are there. But I learned so much about my own condition from being part of that, and I learned so much about the way that the medical students are trained, and I've managed to give some quite acerbic feedback to the examiners and to the people who run these things about areas that I thought their students needed to have more training in, like actually looking at patients. There's so much that we can do to get involved with Parkinson's UK. With PPI means public patient involvement. PE is public engagement. There's lay panels to get involved in with research. There's just so much to get involved in. And again, locally, there's the courses to be run, there's the groups to be attended and helped out with, and outreach as well to minorities and isolated PWPs. And this is an area that needs a lot of attention and a lot of support. So how do we sustain the village? And how do we get the next slide up? One of the things earlier that I mentioned with Jane Bush's talk about volunteering, the research that she had done showed very clearly that volunteers, because we're spending our time doing something that we're not being paid for, we only do that if it's something that we're passionate about. And working with other people who are also passionate about something builds very strong relationships. And volunteers apparently are healthier and happier than people that don't volunteer. And the other thing that she found out was that as we get older, the more we volunteer, the more we keep our physical and our psychological and mental functioning going, and the longer we live. Now this is back to the motivational, knowing that it works is really motivational. So volunteering is, and certainly I'm finding it huge fun. And that's the end of that bit. But what I thought might be an idea is to get some feedback from the groups about what you discussed before lunch. So if we do that, and then we go on to the last bit, which is more about how we can help ourselves through the use of technology. So,
do you want me to go over the tables?
Yes. So, table number 1.
Table number 1. Can you summarise what you discussed earlier?
The whole table wasn't it? Was bits.
We had a sub-discussion about quality of life.
All right. Right. Very quickly.
So we had a sub-discussion in one corner of the table about the QL group and what it does and how it functions, because I have never been and didn't know what it did. So Bill tried to enlighten me. And I think I found that it was something that I probably want to get involved with.
Lovely.
I was actually complaining about the overemphasis of my family on my Parkinson's. They try to protect me far too much, and it's very difficult. In fact, it can, almost come to blows because everybody else would think they're being very kind, but they're kind of, stopping me. And I was talking about that.
Yes, it's very, one of the things about improving our communications is finding the right words to tell people when we don't need help, as well as when we do. So, yes, tricky one. Thank you.
Okay. Would you mind? Is that okay?
Table number... Yes.
Come back.
Yes, if we just pick that one up from Alison.
Sorry, can you say that again?
So yes, one of my problems with Parkinson's is people see you can't do something or other, and they assume you can't do other things.
Yes.
And you feel very tied up and bound down to the substrate, as it were, and you're looking for something to do to serve your community, and people don't think you can do it, so they don't ask you.
Yes. Yes, it's that thing about seeing the problem and not the person.
Thank you. At this table, quite a lot was talked about targets. Quite a lot was discussed about targets, the need for making lists of targets, a daily list, and also more long-term targets, and to think about building a strategy towards achieving those targets. And finally, for encouragement, keep a record of the achievements and emphasize the good feelings of overcoming psychological problems and lack of motivation. And then much has been said in the room about the importance of exercise. Everyone at the table agreed about that. But there is the issue at this time of year in Scotland, the dark days and the lack of daylight, and that it is more difficult to do certainly something like skill walking outside, particularly if there are very icy pavements, etc. But maybe ideas for sort of exercise in the winter months.
And we'll see you at the dance class. Thank you. Yes, one of the things that Brian Grant said was what he did was he looked at small wins that he could do on a daily basis, and he celebrated each one of those wins. And there was another young woman called Emma who was a young onset Parkinson's, and she keeps a diary of all the good things that she's managed to do just that day, and focuses on that. So she feeds the wolf that she wants to feed. So thank you.
We really focused on the diet. We found that really helpful. Most of us hadn't realised that we could do so much to help, as you say, to help yourself without medication. So I think that's made us all focus big time. And also we were lucky enough to have the Pilates teacher with us.
Yes.
And my husband started his first Pilates class on last Friday, or yesterday. So that was, we talked quite a bit about exercise, ballroom dancing and things like this, which are obviously very important too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Since watching that video, the ballroom dancing video, and meeting the guy out there at the Congress, I've actually started another dance class as well as the Parkinson's dance. So, Mature Latin Movers, it's called. It's great fun. Thank you.
We didn't talk about too much, but we're talking about the focus on the nutrition food, and some people saying which kind of oil we use. Some of them, Colin's family use a lot of sunflower oil, and then after this talk of Alison's, we all thinking we should change our habit, should be changed to the better ones, organic ones, but we thought our organic food was quite expensive. And also with talk about the chicken, we were not sure chicken is good or bad. Some people saying chicken is not very good.
That I'm not sure about. I think, I mean, it's protein, so if you're taking levodopa, then you have to be careful about not mixing the drug taking with the protein, because the protein stops the uptake of levodopa. But I don't know enough about that because that's not a drug I'm on myself. So you'd have to talk with the Parkinson's nurse or with somebody else in the room who knows more about it than I do.
Yeah.
But yes.
Another thing we talk about the sugar. Sugar, we should control, but David and I went to the specialist, the nurse and all the neurologists, they all saying, okay, you just take whatever you want. So we don't know, we try to control them, cut off, or just take whatever you want. So this is a question.
One of the things that we found is that it's pretty early days of the various health professionals beginning to really communicate with each other. And one of the things that's so impressive about the work that Thilo is doing and the work that Bastian Bloom is doing is that they're actually talking to each other. So one of Tom Isaac's slides that he put up was a slide called Non-PC Definitions. And his non-PC definition of, non-PC definition of a patient. To the ordinary person in the street, a patient is someone with a bit of a sniffle. To the Parkinson's person, a patient is what I am when I go into hospital and what I am not 3 hours later when I still haven't been seen. And his non-PC definition of what a patient meant to a neurologist was living brain on legs. Some can communicate that these are best avoided. And so there was this, the link between medical nutrition and neurology is something which is very new, and there will be some clinicians who take that on board and some who don't. The medical nutritional theory is something which I'm certainly going to work on because it can't do me any harm, and certainly something I think is important. Thank you.
Hello. The notes here are all really related to medication in one form or another. That has been observed that for travel sick prevention, that quells seem to benefit or lessen the Parkinson's symptoms.
Really?
That was a personal experience with my wife.
Ah.
Yes.
Well, this is back to...
We mentioned it to the neurologist and he said that it affects parts on the brain.
Travel sickness pills are... Were you saying that travel sickness pills...
Yeah, it was quells, travel sick pills seem to lessen the Parkinson's symptoms. They're actually beneficial. I mentioned it to the neurologist and they said, well, yes, it works on the brain, but that's all it was said.
Well, this is something that you might be interested in.
Right.
Yes. Yes, because this plays back into the drug repurposing.
Yes.
Has anyone else found travel sickness pills helpful? Okay. Well,
okay, and you mentioned about your plant-based products being beneficial,
yes.
And there's stuff like Benicol or Flora Proactive, which is meant to help to lower cholesterol. Would that have any benefit for Parkinson's patients for any of their symptoms?
I don't know is the answer.
Right. I know it works for cholesterol. You think these things are hype, but it actually seems to work.
One of the things that David said at the beginning was they were very clear when you've met one person with Parkinson's, you've just met one person with Parkinson's because we're all so different and we react in different ways. So yes, if it works for you, then that's great. And it's,
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah,
For a sec, come back to you.
I'll ask the gentleman what is in the travel pills, what ingredients.
Just tells you on the packet.
We're not sure what the ingredients are in travel sickness pills.
I mean, you can buy them over the counter in the chemist. It's just Quell. It's a standard travel sick pill.
Ken.
So is there any more that you want to report back from your table?
Yes, I'll just get Ken, because Ken knows
Oh,
something
Ken.
apparently about
Yeah.
travel sickness pills. Ken, I've been sent to you. You know something about travel sickness pills.
We're just looking it up now.
Oh, they're Googling it. Okay. Nothing obvious at the moment.
Ah, you heard it here first, folks.
Alison, that's the sort of information that your quality of life group
Yes.
really like to gather.
Yes, that's a very good point. We'll start picking up those kind of details.
Okay, sorry. Apomorphine that I didn't hear that mentioned in any of the medications for Parkinson's. It's been suggested as a potential one for my wife to use. Just wondered if anyone here had experience of it, you know, with a 12-hour
Don't know.
subcutaneous pump.
Anyone experience of the subcutaneous pump with apomorphine? Yeah. So there is someone that Ken knows who's on it, but he hasn't had personal experience. So
Right.
something you'd have to ask about.
Okay. And finally, constipation. More than one person has mentioned that medication seems less effective when you're constipated.
Yes, I mean constipation is one of the bugbears, for want of a better word. There was a whole talk about the digestive system and all the different things that can go wrong with it. There is the Parkinson's nurses have a wonderful recipe which involves an awful lot of prunes, which is up on the QL website as part of the Parkinson's branch website. Lots of water as well. But I don't know what the relationship between the take-up of the levodopa and constipation is.
Right.
So,
We've also got a recipe we passed to the Parkinson's nurses for bran loaf, which seems to help.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Hello, we talked about the importance of voice and finding the balance between speaking too quietly and shouting, which it can be made worse by the fact that many of the people in this room are slightly older, so they're deaf. So you've got that to contend with as well. We also talked a lot about exercise, which others have done, swimming and walking, mountain bikes and exercise bikes. I think that was about it.
The voice thing is very interesting. There's a super voice therapy class that's run in the Astley Ainsley, and that not only helps the voice, but it also helps the swallowing as well, because the vocal cords, as I remember it, start to bow. And in fact, the lanyards that we got given has got LSVT loud, and that's the Lee Silverman voice therapy loud ones, which is what the Astley Ainsley course is based on, and it's very, very effective. And the only reason that my voice has started to drop is because I haven't been keeping my exercises up. So that's another of the things that I'm going to pick up. But yes, thank you for the voice.
We talked about general things, but two main topics were the dilemma about apathy, and whether apathy is who's responsible for apathy, or could it be avoided and helped by the carer, or is it not the carer's job to do that? Is it the person with Parkinson's? And so there's a sort of dilemma where people could help each other, or whatever. It's a bit of a complicated one we saw. So we don't have any great solution to it, but we had a good chat about it. And the other thing we chatted about was foods, and whether you can eat, a bacon sandwich might be a very bad thing for you, but was the craving for a bacon sandwich and having a bacon sandwich good for you, because you're actually satisfied and you think, wow, that was nice. So you get a buzz out of actually having a bacon sandwich or a sausage roll. It makes up for the unhealthy aspects. So it's,
that's a great.
There is that side to things. A little bit of what you want is a good thing. And Linda, I think, has got a wee bit of information about sleeping travel pills.
Oh, no, you've probably looked it up already. It's got hyoscine hydrobromide in it, which seems to affect balance, but you've probably looked that up already.
Sorry, could you use the...
You can look up what Quells contains on the internet, and it has hyoscine hydrobromide in it, which actually affects balance, I think. But I don't know how that would work.
Yes.
I wasn't going to say that.
One of the other things I mentioned was that as Campbell got older, or his taste buds had decreased, that his taste changed, and suddenly it was like curries, something with flavour, because everything I cooked was bland, and also sweet things. But then he got Parkinson's dementia, but this craving for sweet things, which he never did as a youngster. It's bizarre.
Yes.
I'll just go to Mary if that's all right.
I'm the only one who's left in our table between. No, everyone else away. What we did was, there's a slide this morning of one little dot of the time you spend with your consultant and all the other thousands of hours where you don't have that consultation. And we looked at whose agenda really is that tiny bit of time. Why do the consultants want to see us? What is on their agenda when they give us an appointment, as opposed to ours? If we go with our list of things that we need to clear and there's little time to do it, does it cancel out? Whether it's us or the consultant who really comes out tops, or whether we really are a partnership? Is there an imbalance somewhere in that relationship? Yes. We also looked at hospitals and the difficulty of getting medication on time in hospitals, and the possibility, perhaps through Parkinson's nurses, of insisting as a patient that you look after yourself and you see to your own medication when you're perfectly capable of doing that. And we also looked at multiple diagnoses of people who have more things than Parkinson's, and the importance of treating people as a whole, not sort of doing a little bit here and there. You have Parkinson's here, you have something else there, you have something else there, and we all have different consultants and we all treat you differently. To look at the people as a whole person and to take that into consideration, we felt was tremendously important.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, because it's back to the picture of the elephant and all the different people with all the different specialisms, because I mean, one of the things that I keep coming across anecdotally is that I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes before my Parkinson's, and I keep coming across other people, I think yourself included, that had this link. And if it's a multi-system condition, then it makes sense that there should be a link in that way as well. But we just keep...
And I've seen that not happen in hospitals. A patient with diabetes waiting ages for the nurse to come and give her the diabetes medication, which is very bad.
Well, Parkinson's UK is doing a big push at the moment, a big campaign called Get It On Time. So it's something that's, yes, yeah. Anything else? Because what I'd be happy to do is to, if you've got notes, leave them with us, and we can type them up and put them on the website as well, because it's your contribution to each other as well. So sorry, Linda, did you?
The video of the girl who was the chemist, really,
yes,
who was almost doing self-medication and her own drugs. Is there not some evidence that could be hard? You know, people might get the wrong message from that. Taking too much dopa, can that not result in increased dyskinesia? Does taking too much levodopa or at any time result in increased likelihood for dyskinesia?
I don't know. I mean,
I didn't know if that would be
perhaps Ken could answer that one.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, one word answer, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because I was just a bit worried about that video.
Yes. Yes, because it was a bit, I don't know if any of you have watched Breaking Bad, but it was a little bit like that. But interesting about the effect of the nicotine on the dyskinesia. That's very interesting. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Can I just say that I don't think we need to be hung up so much on what we take. You know, as long as it's not regularly that you're taking a lot of protein with your levodopa or whatever. After 22 years, I wouldn't let it rule my life.
No.
As some people do, because they get worried about it. And, you know, once in a while it doesn't seem to matter.
Yes. And there's a question. Yes, I mean, it's me that runs my life, not the condition. Yeah. Peter.
I'm a retired GP and I've had Parkinson's for 6 years. And I saw a very interesting short video which appeared on my Facebook the other day, about a week ago. And it showed a guy who could hardly walk and he stumbled and fell. Then he took off on a bike and cycled really well. And the strange thing was, he after sessions of cycling, he was able to walk better as well. Considerably better, so I was quite surprised at that. I thought it was probably worth a try, so long as you didn't fall off your bike and wreck your knee.
Well, perhaps Lindsay could say something about this.
Like Tylo.
Yeah. Lindsay, would you be happy to say something about cycling?
I'll come.
I was born on a bicycle, so I literally I've cycled all my life. I'm a really, really, really strong supporter of cycling. I don't think there's any concrete scientific evidence of why it actually is that people can hardly walk but can cycle. And I actually find it myself a lot easier to cycle than walk. If I could cycle around the house, I would cycle around the house because it's much easier than walking. And I do believe there is some research going on to various places around the world of why this is, so people can cycle but can't walk. And there are several videos on YouTube. There's a very famous one of a man in a Zimmer who actually gets taken off his Zimmer and put on a bicycle, and he cycles away. Whoosh, he's away. Great, and he comes back and he has to get back on his Zimmer again. And it's just one of these weird things of Parkinson's.
Yes.
The best explanation I had of it was from a physiotherapist who says, whose theory was that cycling uses different parts of your brain than walking does. Walking is a sort of natural instinct thing. You walk, but when you cycle, you have to engage your whole brain into balance, speed of your legs, your coordination of your eyes, your balance, the way you lean, your control of the handlebars, your braking, and your rate of your feet, your speed of your feet and your cadence. So it engages loads of parts of your brain which override the normal Parkinson's things which are affected.
Makes sense.
Which seems that's the best explanation I've had so far.
Thank you. And that leads us nice and segue into technology.
Okay. Should we just...
Thanks all.
How are we doing on our... there we are. Yes. Really, just as a final skim through some of the information we got about technology. And I've called this field technology because there's plenty of deep technology in all of the research work that's going on and all the cell cultivation stuff and so forth and the clinical trials. But this is really technology, wearable technology and technology as between patient and neurologist and GP and so forth. It offers this whole thing of personal monitoring, personal management. And I think that there's a real advantage in that we need to look at. Then more accurate prescribing of drugs and administration of drugs. It can provide enhanced feedback to everybody involved. Service delivery, well, Bastian Bloom was talking about that, of course, and that featured strongly in the Congress. And then the whole business of big data for research and the telemedicine work. So let's have a look at that. Here's our friend, the late Steve Jobs of Apple, and he clearly was interested in technology and saw the future of that. And whoops, I meant to go back one there. And you can see all the different areas that can be monitored of someone with this. And then back to our friend Sarah Rigari, who is Swedish, and she has put a lot of effort into her own Parkinson's disease management and how she communicates with her neurologists and medical support in that. This is just you can see the explosion of gadgetry that is taking place. More and more bits of kit that can monitor the experiences we have and the symptoms we have. And this is how it shapes up in terms of the devices that we carry, the things we can wear, and the business of remote monitoring of qualities that we have. So you can just look at that. And then how that contributes to the evolution of healthcare itself. Oops, sorry. We've got the business of the episodic process, which is much of what happens now. The possibility of a more connected process in home and so on. And then the prospect that's also emerging of continuous monitoring, continuous feedback. And that is what, of course, the young girl who was in the video at lunchtime, she was really continuously monitoring her own processes, and without that would have been in a very different state. This is just a little thing about finger tapping, because self-testing for the impact of different treatments, different medicines, can be revealed. The quality of that can be revealed in a simple finger tapping exercise, and that can give. Now, this is that shows different. You can see different medicines here, and then this is the patient's response to these different things. So, and I don't know that. I'm not going into the technical side of that, but you can just sort of get a sense of what the impact of that has. And this is how technology can influence and benefit clinical trials on a much more wired-up fashion. And of course, you can then, once you've got that data flow coming in regularly and consistently and so on, then analysis can be done at any moment. I've collected these slides from several presentations, as you see. And then I thought this is how they all interlink. It was a slide that Alison made. And this was a take-home message from Sarah Rigari, who has her focus is, first of all, to track what she does regularly, then to use that to innovate. Think about it. What could I do? What could I create? How can I change what I do to benefit myself? And to share the process. So she's linked herself up with other people with Parkinson's, and they all collaborate and share their data, and of course with her health professionals as well. So that was her message. And this is another one from, I forget from which presentation this came, but this was looking at the future. Integration of measurements is a challenge because you've got so many different sources of data coming in. Then the improvement of selection of PD subgroups, which is a lot of studies at the moment are quite selective of the best subjects in order to promote the study, that kind of feedback loop. But really, of course, what you want is a much more representative selection of people from the Parkinson's community, and you can do that because location and things like that don't become so important when you can link people up technologically. And then there's this whole area which we haven't been able to cover very much, but a lot of work is going on into biomarkers. What is it in terms of what we can learn about the way the body behaves and what circulates around in our systems that could give trace effects of early onset of Parkinson's and other things, and how could that be tracked and monitored? So that's a big area for the future. This was a field study that was undertaken across the United States by an enormous collection of people who call themselves Connect Parkinson's, and was funded by about a dozen large corporations, plus a whole lot of participating medical people and nearly 200 people with Parkinson's. It went right across America, not so much in what they call the flyover states in the middle, but there was certainly strong representation in both East and West, to demonstrate the feasibility of telemedicine that would replace visits to, physical visits to the doctors. We saw this one. This was a slide also that Bastian Bloom, I saw, had collared for his presentation when he met us in Edinburgh. But the saving, this is the time spent on a door-to-door visit versus the time spent with a physician. And of course, in telemedicine, it all changes dramatically. 72% of the time is spent with a physician, but online, and that's a little bit of connecting time. So the change, obviously the cost, the personal cost, the physical cost, the environmental, all those kind of things, the service costs in the system drop dramatically with that. And this was feedback from that large trial about what did people experience in terms of the quality of their consultations. And they sort of asked a negative question here. What did you not like about your virtual visit? Most people said nothing, or at least 40% said nothing. A few people said they didn't like the lack of personal touch. Then there were other issues there, of course, which are likely to crop up with technology. But these things can work. And so this is an end of another bit. And I don't know that we have Sasha here anymore to lead us in the stretch, but perhaps it's time we wrapped up for the day. So thank you very much.
David, excuse me, this is a bit of a plug, really. You mentioned self-monitoring.
Yes.
This is just to say that the Parkinson's UK Research Support Network development team has set up a website for people to contribute to anything they like. You can post anonymously on the site if you want to. The web address is www.parkyrsn, that's parkyrsn.org.uk. If anybody wants to take that down, you're most welcome to visit the site, and you'll find there's a section by a guy called Jim Sheridan from the Oxford branch of Parkinson's UK on all about self-monitoring and all these things like tap tests. And it's a great source of information for anybody who wants to play around with technology as it applies to their condition.
But I think as a branch we have to get serious about promoting this among our members and among people we come across.
Yes, it's www.parkyrsn.org.uk. parkyrsn.org.uk.
And we'll publicise that in a follow-up.
And I'd also encourage people here to join the Research Support Network, which you can do by going to the National Parkinson's website, clicking on research and following the links.
Yes, because that's a very good source of, that's how I get involved in most of the trials and interesting things that I do.
And the message is volunteer, participate in research, get interested, and do as much collaboration and self-supported stuff as you possibly can.
Hear, hear.
So that's it. Thank you very much for coming today. Thank you for listening to all this stuff, and I hope it's made some good sense, and I hope it's helped you in your journeys.
And there's more leaflets over there about everything we've been talking about. So.
And this material will get onto our website in due course, together with a film that our friends have been making of all of these proceedings.
Thanks. I'm sure everyone here would want me to thank David and Alison for the amazing work they've done today. I've had some experience of putting things like this together, so I know the extraordinary amount of work that goes into making something which looks as simple as this happen. And I can tell you, it's a huge, huge amount of work. The time they spent in the States acquiring all the information, and the time they've spent back here assembling it, analysing it, organising it, and so on, has given us a tremendous event today, which I think we will certainly all remember for a long time. It stimulated our thoughts and encouraged us to look forward and widely at what's going on, and to help us in what we know is important, which is the self-management of the situation that we're in. Not just the work putting it together, but organising this, the inspiration for the meal that we had today, and the arrangement of it. Tremendous thanks to both of you. And at the same time, I've got to thank the other, the rest of the Parkinson Edinburgh team, who are too numerous to list, who played their part in organising the presentations from up there, organising the food, laying it out, collecting it, tidying it away, all the bits and pieces that we don't actually see. So a huge thanks both to the backroom team of Edinburgh branch and to David and Alison. Thank you. Yeah.